Let me ask you something real. Have you ever felt like your life needs to be flawless to be worth anything at all? That if you don't have it all together all the time, somehow you're failing at being human? Well, let me tell you something radical. There is no such thing as a flawless life. But there is such a thing as a full, meaningful, messy, breathtakingly beautiful one. We live in a world where flawlessness is not just praised, it's packaged, marketed, and sold to us every single day. You open your phone in the morning, and before you even brush your teeth, you're hit with images of perfect lives, flawless skin, toned bodies, spotless homes, picture-perfect relationships, people posting their highlight reels, their best moments, their filtered smiles. And what happens? You start to compare. You start to shrink. You start to wonder, what's wrong with me? But let me tell you something with every fiber of truth I have. Flawlessness is a lie. It's a manufactured illusion designed to keep you in a state of not enoughness. It's the myth that says unless you look a certain way, live a certain lifestyle, earn a certain income, or behave a certain way, you don't belong. But the real kicker, it's never enough. You lose 5 pounds and suddenly you need to lose 5 more. You get 10,000 followers and then you want 50,000. You get praise for being put together and then you feel like you have to stay put together or risk being exposed. The goalpost of perfection keeps moving and your peace keeps getting farther and farther away. Think about this. Have you ever cleaned your house because guests were coming over? Not because it was healthy or needed, but because you were terrified they'd judge you? Have you ever deleted a post because it didn't get enough likes in the first 10 minutes? Have you ever said, I'm fine, when you were absolutely falling apart inside because you didn't want to look weak? That's not just people pleasing. That's the toxic grip of perfectionism. The exhausting attempt to present a flawless life so you can finally be accepted. We've been programmed to hide our mess, and in doing so, we hide our humanity. Do you know what people really connect with? Not your curated version of success, but your courage. Not the filtered image, but your raw truth. The realest conversations happen when someone dares to say, I'm struggling. And someone else replies, me too. We don't bond over perfection. We bond over being real. And here's the thing, the pursuit of flawlessness is not just emotionally draining, it's soul killing. You're not alive just to perform. You're not here to earn your worth through how polished your life looks. You were born worthy. Your value is not in the gloss. Your power is in your grit. Your real strength is in how you show up when things are not picture perfect. Let me give you a very human example. There's a mom out there who scrolls Instagram while holding her toddler, feeling guilty because her living room doesn't look like the magazine home she just saw online. What she doesn't know is that behind that perfect photo, there are crumbs swept out of frame, toys hidden in a corner, and a mom just like her wondering if she's doing enough. One is hiding her chaos. The other is believing she's the only one with it. And that's how the lie spreads. The truth? Life is messy. Healing is messy. Growth is messy. And that's where the beauty is. Look around you. The most powerful people in the world are not flawless. They're bold. They've made mistakes, felt fear, fallen on their faces, and stood up again anyway. They didn't wait until everything was perfect to begin. They began in the middle of the mess. They embraced the cracks, the chaos, the contradictions. Because real transformation doesn't come from pretending to be flawless. It comes from owning your truth, even when your voice shakes. You are not a brand. You are a breathing, feeling, evolving human being. We live in a world that teaches us from a very young age that being strong means being stoic, that holding your emotions in is a form of discipline, that showing feelings, tears, anxiety, fear, even love is weakness. You get hurt, swallow it. You're scared, hide it. You're overwhelmed, smile anyway. We're trained to build walls instead of bridges, to armor up instead of open up. But here's what no one tells you. That armor doesn't protect you. It isolates you. True strength isn't pretending you're fine when you're breaking inside. It's being able to look someone in the eye and say, I'm not okay, but I'm still here. That takes courage most people don't even know they have. Take this example. A father who lost his job but still shows up at the dinner table, holds his child close, and whispers, we're going to be okay, even though he's scared out of his mind. That's vulnerability. That's strength. Because it's easy to smile when life is smooth, but when your back's against the wall and you still choose to love, to care, to stay present, that's power. Think about the young woman sitting in a college classroom, battling crippling anxiety, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She could walk out, disappear, avoid it all, but instead she raises her hand and says, I need help. But then stands up. That moment, that single sentence, that's braver than any perfect grade. She didn't put on a mask. She chose to be seen. Or imagine the man who walks into a therapist's office after 20 years of holding it all in, anger, grief, childhood wounds, and finally says, I don't want to carry this anymore. Not because someone made him, but because he decided that healing is more important than pretending to be strong. That moment right there, that's not weakness. That's resurrection. That's the kind of strength that breaks chains. Let's talk about relationships. Real, raw, human connection. The strongest ones aren't built on perfection. They're built on vulnerability. When someone says, this is who I am, I'm not always easy. I've got scars. I've got fears, but I'm showing up for you anyway. That's when love becomes real. Because perfection isn't relatable, but honesty is irresistible. One of the hardest things a person can ever do is say, I was wrong, or I hurt you, or I need you. It's terrifying, but those words have the power to rebuild marriages, reconnect families, repair broken friendships. Vulnerability isn't just a feeling, it's a force. It's the root of every authentic connection, every great leader, every unforgettable human moment. Think about every powerful speech you've heard, every story that gave you chills. They weren't about perfect lives. They were about someone who got knocked down, got back up, and had the guts to tell the truth about it. That's why we remember them, because they remind us of something sacred. We're not alone. You don't inspire people by being untouchable. You inspire them when you cry and still choose to show up, when you tremble but still take the stage, when you admit you're afraid but still move forward anyway. That's the kind of strength that moves hearts and changes lives. Shame is that voice in your head that whispers, you're not good enough. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It lurks in the shadows. It tells you to smile when you're crying inside. It tells you to keep quiet when you're desperate to speak up. And the worst part, you start to believe it. You begin to confuse that voice with truth. Shame doesn't say, you made a mistake. it says, you are a mess. That's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. And when that belief takes root, joy can't breathe, confidence can't grow, dreams can't survive. Imagine a high school student who loves to draw. She sketches in her notebook every day, pours her soul into every pencil stroke. One day, a classmate looks over and laughs. That's what you've been working on? And just like that, shame enters the room. She closes the notebook, stops drawing in public. Weeks pass, then months. The sketchbook gets dusty, and her gift quietly dies in the shadows. Not because she wasn't talented, but because shame told her she wasn't enough. That's what shame does. It kills the joy of doing something you love before it even begins. Or think of the young man in his first job. He's eager, bright, but unsure of himself. During a team meeting, he offers an idea, only to be brushed off with a sarcastic chuckle by a superior. Later, he replays that moment over and over. I shouldn't have said anything. I sounded stupid. They probably think I'm an idiot. That shame, it doesn't leave when the meeting ends. It lingers. It infects his confidence, making him play small, stay silent, keep his brilliance buried. Shame doesn't just attack your actions. It attacks your identity. And when it does, you start believing your value is conditional, that you have to earn belonging, that you're only lovable if you're flawless. A mother stands in the grocery store checkout line, her toddler screaming in a full-blown tantrum. She feels eyes burning into her skin, judgment, impatience. She forces a smile, but inside, she's drowning in shame. That's when we lose our vitality. She forces a smile, but inside, she's drowning in shame. I feel jealous of your flaws. A mother stands in the grocery store checkout line. She forces a smile, but inside she's drowning in shame. That's where you learn to hide from the world. You cover pain and inadequacy. I'm a bad mom. I can't even keep my kid under control. Everyone must think I'm failing. The truth? She's not a bad mom. She's a human one. But shame distorts the lens. It makes her see herself as a failure instead of a fighter doing her best in a hard moment. Even in our relationships, shame slips in unnoticed. A man breaks down in front of his partner after losing a parent and afterwards says, "Sorry, I shouldn't have lost it like that." That's not just an apology. That's shame policing his grief. That's a lifetime of messages telling him real men don't cry. So instead of being held, he hides. Instead of healing, he hardens. And both of them lose out on intimacy that could have changed everything. In every story, shame isolates. It convinces you that you're alone in your pain, that no one else feels this way, that if you told the truth about what you're going through, people would leave, and so you stay silent. But silence is where shame grows. It thrives in secrecy. It feeds on your fear of being seen. You don't break free of shame by pretending it isn't there. You break free by shining a light on it. You break free by saying out loud what shame tells you to keep buried. You break free when you realize that everyone has that voice, that it's not your truth, it's just your trauma talking. When shame loses its grip, joy starts to rise, confidence finds a way in, and little by little, you start to believe that your story, just as it is worth sharing. Perfection is not a goal, it's a shield. A heavy, exhausting, suffocating kind of armor we put on every single day just to make it through the world without getting judged, hurt, or rejected. But here's the truth no one talks about. That armor doesn't protect us. It disconnects us. It keeps us from being seen, loved, and truly alive. Think of the woman who wakes up an hour earlier just to put on a full face of makeup before her husband even sees her in the morning. Not because she wants to, because she's terrified of being seen without it. Somewhere along the line, she was told that love is earned through beauty, that imperfection is shameful. So she paints her face like a mask. That's perfection as armor. And the saddest part, she's loved for who she pretends to be, not for who she actually is. She hides behind that mask, longing for intimacy but never truly feeling known. Or the man at work who double checks every email 10 times before sending it, who stays an hour later than everyone else, who never asks for help because asking would mean he doesn't have it all together and God forbid someone sees that, so he smiles, nods, burns out quietly. On the surface, he's the guy who's always on top of things. Inside, he's drowning. Because perfectionism doesn't just create stress, it creates isolation. When you wear that armor, people admire your strength, but they don't see your struggle. And that's the loneliest place to live. Then there's the mom scrolling Instagram while holding a crying baby in one hand, bottle in the other, hair a mess, heart overwhelmed. She sees picture after picture of perfectly staged living rooms, smiling babies, and moms in white dresses who somehow don't have spit up stains. She looks around her own home, sees the chaos, and feels like she's failing. So the next time she posts, she cleans one corner of the house, props the baby up, forces a smile, and filters the moment. That's not a memory, it's a performance. She doesn't do it for the likes, she does it to escape the shame. Because that armor, those filtered posts, are a desperate attempt to feel good enough in a world that's constantly telling her she's not. A teenager who loves to dance but refuses to share it with anyone because her body doesn't match the influencers she sees online. She practices in secret in the dark corners of her room. The rhythm sets her free, but shame locks the door. She thinks if I were thinner, if I looked different, I'd post, I'd dance, I'd show up. But perfection is the gatekeeper of her joy. It tells her that she has to earn the right to be seen, that her gift doesn't matter if it doesn't look a certain way. So she hides, even though the world desperately needs the fire she carries. There's the college student who says yes to every opportunity, every internship, every group project, because slowing down would feel like laziness. Resting would feel like failure. She can't say no. She can't admit she's tired because her entire identity is built on being the best. Her self-worth is tied to performance. So she keeps hustling until her body rebels, until her heart breaks, because you can only wear that kind of armor for so long before it starts to crush you. We wear perfection like a badge of honor, but it's a weight we were never meant to carry. Real life is not perfect. It's messy, it's chaotic, it's uncertain, and that's what makes it beautiful. The cracks in our lives, that's where the light gets in, the vulnerability, the realness, the honesty. That's where we connect. That's where we finally exhale. There is a belief that has slowly, silently, and dangerously crept into the human heart, that worthiness must be earned, that you have to prove your value, that you must achieve, hustle, perform, and perfect your way into being enough. And this lie, it starts early. A child gets straight A's and is praised for being smart. She learns her worth is tied to her report card. A young boy wins a soccer game and hears, "You're the best." But when he loses, no one says a word. He learns that love is conditional, applause equals acceptance, success equals significance. But let me tell you something that will break the chains off your soul. Worthiness is not earned, it's claimed. You don't become worthy when you get the job. You don't become enough when you lose the weight. You don't finally deserve love because your skin is clear, your resume is full, or your house looks like a Pinterest board. You were worthy before. You were worthy when you woke up late, when you stumbled through your words, when you couldn't stop crying in the car. You were worthy when you had nothing to offer except your breath. Because worthiness isn't performance, it's presence. It's the radical, soul-shifting decision to believe, I matter now, not later. Think of a single mother working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. She comes home tired, her feet aching, and still manages to kiss her child goodnight with a smile. The world might not applaud her. She may not get awards, trophies, or likes, but she is worthy. Not because of what she produces, but because of who she is. Her love, her effort, her being. And when she looks in the mirror and still doubts herself, she needs to remember, you don't have to prove a damn thing. You already are enough. Imagine a college student who failed a class, his confidence shattered, his inner voice screaming, you're a disappointment. But here's the truth. Failure doesn't erase your worth. One grade, one moment, one setback, it doesn't define you. The lesson is not about the grade. The real assignment is this. Will you still believe in your value when no one else does? Will you have the courage to claim your worth, even when it's quiet, even when it's hard? There's a young woman who scrolls social media and sees perfect bodies, perfect lives, perfect everything. She feels invisible, not pretty enough, not successful enough, not happy enough. But what she doesn't know is that behind many of those photos are people just like her, hurting, doubting, editing their pain with filters. If she could silence the noise long enough to hear the truth, she'd understand. You are not a product. You are a person. You don't need to shrink to be loved. You don't need to fix anything to be valuable. You are worthy right now, just as you are. Say it with your chest. I do not chase worth. I own it. Now picture a man who grew up never hearing, I'm proud of you. Every success felt hollow. Every promotion felt like another temporary badge. Deep down, he believed he had to keep proving himself to his father, his boss, the world. But one day, he stands still, looks in the mirror, and finally says, I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need to outrun shame. I choose me. And that moment, he doesn't become worthy. He claims the worth that was always his. That is power. And there's the teenager who's never been picked first, never been the favorite, always been the background character in other people's lives. But one day she realizes that the spotlight she was waiting for is something she can turn on herself. She speaks up. She raises her hand. She wears what she loves, not what's safe, because she's done shrinking. She's done auditioning. She says to herself, this is who I am. I take up space. I don't need permission to be here. That is claiming your worth. That is how revolutions begin. There's a father who wants to protect his kids from every failure. He checks their homework twice. He hovers at every sports practice. He corrects their every move, thinking it's love, but really, it's fear. One day, his daughter comes home with a failed math test. He wants to scold, to fix, to take control. But instead, he takes a breath and says, tell me what happened. She opens up, they talk, they connect. That night, she studies harder, not out of fear, but out of confidence. Because he didn't try to control her journey, he had the courage to trust her in it. That's what builds resilient kids. Not perfection, but presence. Imagine a man climbing the corporate ladder, every move calculated, every word rehearsed, every email polished to perfection. But inside, he's exhausted. He feels like a fraud. One day, in a meeting, he finally speaks from the heart. No script, no filters, just honesty. He says, "I don't have the answer yet, but I'm working on it." Silence follows. Then someone says, "Thank you, that was real." From that day forward, people trust him more. Not because he had control, but because he had the courage to be human. The flawless life isn't about flawless performance. It's about fearless authenticity. Picture the artist who hides her paintings in the closet. She's afraid of the judgment, afraid of the what if it's not good enough. She craves control over how people perceive her. But one day, she posts one painting online. No explanation, no apologies, just the art and her name. She closes her eyes and waits. And the message comes. This moved me. She cries, not because she went viral, but because she finally let herself be seen. She stepped into the arena. That's courage. That's where the flawless life lives, in the bold decision to be vulnerable in a world that tells you to play small. A teenager, terrified of rejection, edits her personality to fit in. She laughs at jokes she doesn't find funny. She wears what they wear. She hides who she is. She controls everything. Her voice, her hair, her opinions. But one day, she's had enough. She walks into school with a poem she wrote. She reads it out loud, voice trembling. When she finishes, the room is silent. Then someone claps, and another, and another. She didn't control the response. She courageously created it. That day, she didn't just find her voice, she found her power. Control keeps us comfortable, but comfort zones don't create masterpieces. It's when we step out of the script, when we leap, fall, get back up, that the magic happens. That when we step out of the script, when we leap, fall, get back up, that the flawless life is not found in what you control. It's found in what you're willing to do, feel, risk, and reveal, even when control slips through your fingers. 2/2. So here's the truth, raw and unfiltered. There is no such thing as a flawless life. There never was. That dream, that shiny, curated, Instagram filtered version of reality, it's a myth. It's an illusion that's cost us too much. Our peace, our self-worth, our ability to just be. We've spent our lives editing our joy, managing our pain and hiding our pain, and hiding our humanness just to fit into a mold that doesn't even exist. And for what? To be accepted, to be safe, to be enough. But the real power, the real liberation comes when we drop the act, take off the mask, and show up as we are, not as we think we should be. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be real, to feel deeply, to fail and try again, to risk and rise, to mess up and keep moving. This life, this messy, beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable life, is not about getting everything right. It's about getting back up every time you fall. It's about choosing courage over comfort. It's about standing in front of the world, scars and all, and saying, "This is me, and I am still worthy." Because let's be honest, no one connects with perfect. People connect with truth, with vulnerability, with stories that sound like their own. That's why your cracks matter. That's why your broken places are still holy. Leonard Cohen said, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And I'll take a life full of light over a life that just looks good any day. You want a flawless life? Then redefine what flawless means. It's not spotless. It's not seamless. It's not filtered. Flawless is the woman who keeps showing up after being knocked down by life again and again and still believes in her future. Flawless is the man who breaks down in tears but doesn't apologize for his heart. Flawless is the teen who chooses authenticity over popularity, even when it costs them everything. Flawless is you standing tall in your truth, in your story, in your storm, and still choosing to keep walking. You were born to do more than exist. You were born to live. You were born to make noise, to take up space, to challenge the narratives, to redefine what it means to be strong. It's not in the perfection of your image, it's in the resilience of your soul. Remember, the people who change the world are not the ones who are perfect. They're the ones who are real. They're the ones who dare to say, even if I'm afraid, I will speak. Even if I fail, I will rise. Even if I'm doubted, I will still believe. So burn the script. Ditch the checklist. Let go of the myth that tells you your life has to look like a straight line to be worthy. You don't need to be flawless to be phenomenal. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be brave. Because in the end, it won't be the filtered photos or flawless resumes that matter. It'll be the moments you were real, the moments you dared to feel, the moments you stood in the fire and said, I'm still here. As Maya Angelou said, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. As Nelson Mandela declared, the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And as Brené Brown reminds us, vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. So walk forward, not with fear, but with fire. Not chasing perfection, but claiming presence. And know this: you don't have to live a flawless life to live a full one. You just have to live it fully, fiercely, and unapologetically as you,